And welcome back to the First and Goal podcast. My name is Lewis. Next to me, as always, my beautiful co-host, Laraib, as we are here to break down week 4 of the NFL season. Already almost a quarter of the season through, Laraib. It's it's sad because you go so long without football. Then now that we're here, you just want more and more, but you also get kind of a little lazy, right? It's like, that's enough football. Let's get over the playoffs. But it's still awesome. It's still the best sport on the planet. Um, Best television product ever. But yeah, really good week 4. A lot of interesting games. Our first tie of the season and an epic Sunday night football game.
Hopefully
Um,
our only tie this season.
Hopefully, it's the worst thing to look at in the entire standings. I hate ties. I'm so happy we didn't have one last year. Unfortunately, we had one this year. Where we didn't tie, Larab, was the picks, actually. If you'd like to pull those up.
Just go ahead and gloat for me, big bro.
So yeah, I'll go ahead and start here. So that's me on the right, with the big number 14. I mean, this week couldn't have gone better for me. The whole 3 o'clock window was just beautiful. The first lock or the first upset of the week to hit was my upset of the Jaguars over the Niners. Niners with too many injuries. Brock Purdy's first game back, he had 3 turnovers. He did have a chance at the end to, take the lead down 6, which did scare me for a bit because Trevor Lawrence was just waiting for the Niners to come back. Um, but a fumble from Purdy, or no, was it a pick? I'm not sure. Late in that game, kind of put that one away. Obviously, Kansas City flexed its muscles at home, and then just rounding it out, whose house? Rams house. And but what went wrong with you, Larob?
Of course, it starts with my Chargers, who were, you know what? Props to you. I said it in the podcast, and I didn't take it myself. A West Coast team traveling to the East Coast have an advantage, and a West Coast, or excuse me, don't have an advantage, and an East Coast team traveling to the West Coast do have the advantage. That was your Jacksonville Jaguars getting the upset. That was my Los Angeles Chargers missing and losing to Jackson Dart. And then, of course, the other two games that we disagreed on were just the icing on the cake for you. The Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels just, he loves to play football whenever he feels like it. He hasn't felt like that in 2 weeks. And of course, the Baltimore Ravens and the issues they have been plagued with makes this a 5-point victory for you. A margin. I don't know if we've seen a drubbing like that, but that just makes me
White.
all the more, um, I don't know, confident, enthusiastic about my picks for next week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling great. I think that I've kind of figured out this NFL season, really like finger on the pulse. Now, if you asked my FanDuel account, it would disagree with you for sure. But that's why I got to go with the picks, man. Got to go with your initial feelings. We had the Wednesday episode where we were really able to get them all knocked out. That was really nice. Those early lines. Some of us took more of advantage. But we're gonna do today, Laura. No Monday Night Football recap. It was both games were garbage. All right. So what we're gonna do is our top 10 teams a quarter of the season through. If this was the old classic days, this would be in the 16 game season, exactly the quarter mark through the 17th game in there. So we're at like the 23.8% mark of the NFL season, Laura. And so I think it's a good time to kind of break down so far. Every team's played 4 games. First round of bye week start next week. So um, every team's played 4 games. We're now going to choose our top 10 teams, starting from 10, going down to 1, Laurab. But who are a few teams that, and before you start name them, what were you looking for in your top 10 teams exactly? And who are some teams that barely missed the cut?
Well, one thing I wasn't really paying much attention to was record. I mean, this far into the season, you have a team like the 49ers who are 3-1, but really have not passed the eye test. Same thing with the Cardinals, have not looked that great. It's about teams, the way they've been playing, and especially who they've been playing against. That was a huge factor that went in. Special teams was a huge emphasis of mine as well, especially from years past. It's just been a huge part of this year's games, and so that was a couple of things that I was looking forward to when picking these teams. A couple of teams I had right there on the bubble. The Broncos at 2-2. A reason I didn't put them in, their 2 victories have come against the Titans and the Bengals, who have both been stinkers. They lost to 2 all right teams. Another team I had on the bubble is my Seattle Seahawks. After they are
Wow.
not in the yes, they are not in my top 10 right now, but after a really shaky week one, they really buttoned some things down offensively and defensively. It looks like they are going to be a solid team this year, but I still have to see some more, especially with that how that Cardinals game ended. And the team that I will not ever put in my top 10 just because I hate them so much is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are also 3-1. Have had a couple,
You hate the
couple. Oh,
Steelers or you hate?
well, I hate Aaron Rodgers, but I also hate the Steelers because I am
Oh,
not a big fan of Mike Tomlin and
oh.
his winning record streak, which, I
It's gonna
mean,
happen
it's gonna
again.
happen again. Somehow, some way, the voodoo magic will continue. They've had a couple impressive wins, especially this past week against the Vikings, but Aaron Rodgers, I'm not putting him in top 10.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on a lot of the same teams that I had on the bubble. A team that didn't make it for me is the Washington Commanders. I just think, with
Oh,
Jaden
come
back,
on, bro.
when Jaden, all right, excuse me, when Jaden comes back, they will undoubtedly be in that
If he
mix for the
comes
top
back,
does
does he plan on
he's
playing football again?
he's
I
playing
mean,
this weekend. He's playing this weekend. So I understand tough look against the Falcons last week. But when he comes back, I've seen enough from I think Debo's had actually a pretty impressive start to the year. And the defense has been pretty impressive so far. I mean, obviously, you're not having the same offensive impact to supplement that defense, but I think they've been able to kind of run the ball by committee with some of their guys. And it's they'll be good when Jaden comes back. So I want to throw him out. Also, want to give a shout to the New England Patriots, who I think after a rough 2 weeks of the season, bounced back. Very impressive win against, albeit the Panthers last week. But um, Drake May finding some rhythm, finding some mojo. They have a big test up against Buffalo next week, which I'm excited to see. So I wanted to give them a quick shout. Defense playing a lot better now that Vrabel's starting to really sink his claws into that team. But yeah, for me, it was really like I'm looking at the contenders. Like, who do I trust? Who's playing the best football? Football that I think will move on to January, February football, right? So starting at number 10, Larob, I have the Indianapolis Colts at my 10th spot. I didn't think they'd be here. I thought they'd be one of the worst teams in the league, but I got to give respect where respect's due. They were hanging in that game with the Rams last week, and even though, I picked against them, the threat was there. They were moving the ball well. If it wasn't for a Adonai Mitchell fumble out of the back of the end zone, they're in that game, and a Jonathan Taylor uh 80-yard touchdown run, however long it was, called back for a hold. I mean, there were so many opportunities in that game. And Daniel Jones had a few bad turnovers. They definitely punted more, but I mean, on the road against a team that we both probably have in this on the top 10 list in the Rams, pretty impressive showing, right? So can they keep up this momentum? I think they play in a very weak division. They'll be able to stack up a lot of wins, and then Daniel Jones at home has also just been really good this season. So can he continue to build on this momentum, or tomorrow is what day, Rob?
Wednesday. Oh, October 1st, spooky
October
season.
1st. That is when the pumpkin patches come out. Unfortunately for my man Carson Wentz, came out a little earlier, but I guess that's how the time zones work in Ireland. Um, but it's spooky season coming up, so this is a huge month for a few of our pumpkin watch candidates. Looking at you, Daniel Jones. Looking at you, Sam Darnold. A few other guys definitely on pumpkin watch, but so far so good. I really like this Colts team. Only big thing for me, pass secondary definitely got exploited last week by Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. So that's something that they're going to have to sugar up going forward.
Yeah, I like the Colts. They are on this list for me, but for my number 10 spot, I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 3-1. Listen, you can put that face up at me all you want, Lewis. This defense has 13 takeaways through 4 weeks. They just went on the road, beat the 49ers. If they didn't have the stupid collapse against the Bengals, this is a team that's 4-0, and they haven't even been playing their best football yet. Trevor Lawrence has not been on the same page with Brian Thomas Jr. Travis Etienne, he has been the big highlight. Him and Bashal Tutin, their running attack has been potent this year. I just think this team and the huge X factor is, like I mentioned when we started, has been their special teams. Parker Washington, as a return man, has been dangerous. He took back a kick against the 49ers to kind of ice that game. When you have a kicker in Cam Little who has shown the ability to hit 70-yard field goals, I think this Jaguars team, who's in that weak division with the Colts, I think I really like what I saw out of them so far this season. And I think they're about to hit their stride, especially with Liam Cohen in his first year. Like you said, Mike Vrabel is starting to sink his teeth in. We'll see some of these first year head coaches in their new spots really start to establish their identity. One thing I really liked, you can say you didn't like this or you liked it, but after that game ended, you saw Liam Cohen walk away from Robert Saleh and said, "Keep my effing name out your mouth, buddy." And that's the type of identity they're trying to establish in Jacksonville. And that's why I have the Jaguars at 10.
I can't get behind Trevor Lawrence at this point. I used to be the Trevor guy, but it seems like I'm at like a Kyler Murray spot with him right now. They feel kind of like the Cardinals of the AFC. Um, I will say Liam Cohen has proven to be like a good coach, clearly an emphasis on running the ball, and that works come playoff time, but a lot of turnover luck and a lot of things that, if they come back to the mean, aren't going to go well in the Jaguars' favor. So I couldn't get there. Um, However, my number 9 team, Laraib, is Pumpkin Watch, your Seattle Seahawks.
Ooh.
Had the Seahawks here, and this defense has been playing like the best defense in football, I want to say. Getting a lot of guys back too who were missing. But I mean, you talk about special teams as well. Just really good Jason Myers, game-winning field goal the other day. Just really good operation. Obviously they dominated the same special teams 2 weeks ago, but I just think they have a good operation. Definitely led by this defense. That front four, just the constant pressure they're getting, no matter what. And you can say you didn't like exactly how they came out and performed against the Cardinals, but it's just tough going on the road against a divisional opponent, finding a way to win in that spot. And if they didn't lose that first game, where they're really figuring things out against the Niners, they're looking in a really good spot in this division. But everyone in that division's 3-1, unfortunately, so they got to find their way out. But I just think they have more pieces and more room to grow. Right, this running game that hasn't been that great so far, really hasn't been totally unlocked. It had some flashes here and there, like against the Steelers in week 2, but hasn't really had that chance to have that full Clint Kubiak experience. And Sam Darnold's been fine. Hasn't really been asked to do too much, but building a connection with Jackson Smith and Jigba on the outside, who's just been elite going into this year. It seems like this is the year for him to step up, and he's answering the bell so far. So I've been impressed with what I've seen from the Seahawks team, and I think their ceiling is a lot higher than a lot of people are giving them credit for.
Yeah, I agree with the ceiling part. The only reason I didn't have them in is the question marks around Sam Darnold. Like you said, Pumpkin Watch is here. Uh, I really, like you mentioned, I really like the cohesiveness they've had on the defensive side of the ball, but it's going to take a little bit more for me to see a little bit more impressive wins. They have a couple tough games coming up, most notably against the Buccaneers this week, and so you want to see them continue to establish a run, establish that defensive presence, and they have a chance to vault into my top 10. But at my number 9 spot, I have the Indianapolis Colts. Like you mentioned, a couple Adonai Mitchell bonehead plays away from being 4-0, hung in right there with the Rams last week, beat the Broncos at home. And Daniel Jones, despite the early turnover in that game, he really stood in there and battled it out against this Rams defense. But the huge glaring thing is the secondary, like you mentioned, for that team. They just got carved up. Now they do have 3 games coming up against the Raiders, the Cardinals, and the Chargers. 3 sort of middle of the road teams here, and so you kind of want to see what they can continue to prove for Daniel Jones. But I have them at the number 9 spot.
All right, Larab. And then my number 8 spot is a team you just mentioned, the Los Angeles Chargers. Um, Admittedly, I'd probably have them way higher up this list, but after this past weekend, not only just losing to the Jackson Dart-led Giants, which was pathetic, but MetLife strikes again, not only claiming Malik Neighbors, but high ankle sprain for Joe Alt. And you could tell the moment he left that game, their offensive identity completely shifted. They were stuck in mud, a ton of pressure in Herbert's face. And for him to, be confident is a huge thing because when he's rattled, when the stakes are like a little bit high, he completely falls off the rails, right? So it all comes down to that. The offensive infrastructure. Can this offensive line stay healthy to give Herbert that confidence to play well? And so far, so this season, he has played really well. This defense has been pretty good. I will say last game, it seemed like the Amari and Hampton kind of breakout had a few long plays, a long touchdown in there, kind of getting his sea legs in this offense, which is just good for them going forward. But don't love what I'm seeing from this offensive line. They need to get that figured out. And then defensively, I think against some of the upper echelon passing attacks in the AFC, that defensive secondary is gettable. And we'll see with the Khalil Mack injury how great their defensive front really is. So I think there's definitely holes to exploit, but so far defense been good, offense in a scary spot.
Yeah, I also have the Chargers here at the number 8 spot. Like you mentioned, it's just the offense. The rushing attack was amazing. You know, Amari Hampton over 10 yards per carry in this game, but when they had to drop back and pass, it was pressure in Justin Herbert's face almost immediately. Please get him some help. And then, you know, that led to a lot of unforced errors, giving the Giants really short field positioning. And so I don't really, you know, the defense is another thing, kind of like the Seahawks, where you don't have the big name. You know, you have Bud Dupree as your premier pass rusher on the outside. It's more about what Jesse Mentor brings as a defensive coordinator and as a unit as a whole. They're playing very well. But offensively, it's gonna, you know, you want to see what happens when this offensive line restructures and how Justin Herbert can try to battle out with this subpar offensive line at the moment. Their next three games against the Commanders, the Dolphins, and the Colts, they should be favored in all three of those games, and all three should be wins. But this is just a team with, like I mentioned last week against the Giants, you're trying to put those skeletons away in the closet. But you know, they just keep on coming out, and we'll see how they continue to build off of that.
Speaking of, I was watching the end of the Raiders and Bears game, and there was a big moment. Colton Miller went down for the Raiders, and I'm trying to see, what's going to happen at the end of this game. It's crazy. And then Stone Forsythe came in to replace him, and I almost cried for the Raiders and their fans. They've been through so much that a Stone Forsythe pass protection, just a white tear went down my leg, Laraib. Anywho, but moving on now. All right, so we agree on that one. Let's see if we agree on this one. My number 8 team is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, you could say whatever, that they have a ton of injuries, that they haven't really beaten any good team so far, but they find ways to win. And even in that game against the Eagles last week that they lost, they're just sticking in it, and they're always that threat at the very end. They can come back and just pull a win out of their ass because that's the faith they have in this offense of Baker Mayfield. Um, you get Godwin back last week, which was good. He didn't look that impressive, but at least he's back in the lineup. Bucky Irving just looks explosive this season. 70-yard touchdown last week. He looks awesome. Obviously, Emeka Ibuka is just a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL right now. Absolute stud. He's one of the best players in the NFL. Probably my favorite player in the NFL. Probably your mom's favorite player in the NFL. I love Emeka Ibuka. You'll hear that multiple times. But I'm just always going to be impressed with his Todd Bowles scheme defense. He gets a lot of crap for how the team kind of fizzles out against better opponents and stuff, but certainly has the Eagles number. Eagles get off to a weird start in that game with a blocked punt touchdown and just kind of a long play. So it seems like they're getting blown out, but in that second half, he completely bottled up the Eagles offense and just looked, super impressive with all the injuries that we mentioned, right? This offensive line, but these guys are all coming back. That's where I get a lot of my hope for this Bucks team as they enter a pretty tough stretch coming up here for their schedule. That if they can just get through this tough stretch, the end of their schedule, week 11 on, is cake butter for them. So, if they can rattle these off, picking up wins along the way, they're in a really good position moving forward. Potential 1 seed in the NFC. Now, obviously, that got harder with the loss against Philly today or against on Sunday. But so far, they're just finding ways to win. This team is resilient. They don't give up. In the NFL today, you see these leads change, go back and forth all the time. Having a group that's resilient and has that belief in their quarterback and in their offense is just dangerous.
I really like the Buccaneers. That's why they're higher on my list. At number 7, I have the Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little shocking,
Wait.
I know. At number
Oh, never
7.
mind. Never mind. Never
Yeah,
mind.
number 7 at 2, 1, and 1. I mean, can I see this damn team have the offense and the defense both play good on the same game? I mean, the past 2 weeks, you give up 40 points to the Cowboys, and the week before, your offense can barely muster up 10 points on the road against Cleveland. So this is a unit I really want to see them put together a complete game from both sides. And Jordan Love is just riding the wave with him, right? I mean, I know they don't have the greatest weapons on the outside, but for me, it's just been, you see a great first couple of drives from him, and then, he just kind of just mails it in the next couple of drives, and then, they come out in the second half and they're scoring a bunch of points, and then it's, games on the line, and you're kind of just fumbling in overtime, and so it's just the ride the wave, like I mentioned. But for this defense, again, they looked really good to start off the season, but this past week, their secondary got exposed really bad. I mean, Valentine at the cornerback
Oh,
position, just not very good.
golly.
Micah Parsons, as much of a world beater as he can be, he just wasn't that X factor that they needed him to be in this game. And so a lot of question marks for this team. And I just don't like Jordan Love as much as I like some of these other quarterbacks we have coming up.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I have Green Bay as my next team as well. And I'll just hit on some of the points that you mentioned. Like Jordan Love, like it's kind of a roller coaster, right? Because he was playing a really good game. They had a decent lead. But it's just like, is he in a position where you can trust him to maintain a lead, to run an offense, to run like get you down the field? Because it was scary in overtime when he's sitting there looking for somebody. And I don't know which Packers fan was running the Cowboys home clock, but I mean, bang, yep, that's 1 second left. Oh, 1 second. But he almost just horribly botched that end of game situation for the Packers that it's tough to have consistent faith. Now, he put up big numbers against the worst defense in the NFL, but you figure against some of these better teams, better defenses, kind of like in the playoff game last year against Philly, just kind of crumbled in that pressure. There still hasn't been a wide receiver one to really emerge as that game changer. We thought that would be Golden, the rookie, or maybe another guy pops up. Now, obviously, Dreed and Quadson are still out at the moment. So when they come back, that's just more firepower in that room. But there's just that lack of dynamicism on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, yeah, they were awesome the first 3 weeks of the season. They were really awesome last week too. It was just the offense that kind of screwed themselves. But it was just a lot of that secondary getting, and that was my biggest concern with this Packers team was that secondary was feastable. Not a lot of household names, a lot of guys, you know, who are coming over from other positions, right? So it just really wasn't that trustworthy. And then you get an injury, you have a guy like Valentine go out there and oh my goodness, Valentine, like just getting burnt by Pickens every single play. So they have a lot of stuff to figure out. That front seven cannot get to the quarterback. It's going to be a long day for that back end. So the overall talent and composition of this roster is why, even though all that negativity, I still have them here at my number 6 spot, but I need to see a lot more from them against tougher competition. I need to see more from Jordan Love in these high stakes games to make me have more faith in them.
Yeah, and then for my number 6 spot is the Buccaneers that you previously mentioned. I just like them a little bit more. I trust Mayfield more. I trust Bucky Irving and Rashad White combo a little bit more. I know I trust Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka, and Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan and Kate Otten a lot more than the pass catchers in Green Bay. And then they play in a piss easy division, right? I mean, they have a steady hand on their division. You can say they haven't had the most impressive victories, having to claw back in all their three wins, but I just saw them hang toe to toe against the Eagles. And like you mentioned, Jalen Hurts 0 completed passes in the second half of that game, and so there's just a lot more things for me to like from this Buccaneers team who they've been to the playoffs the past couple of seasons. They have a Super Bowl win in the last 5 years. You can see what the sort of offense structure can look like. And like you mentioned, with all the injuries they have on the offensive line, with some of the injuries on the defensive line, they're going to start to get healthier. And then you see a path for them to continue to dominate.
Yep, and I mean, there definitely is a path, and if they get that home record and really get a lot of that offense flowing, that it's just the overall faith in the team. That's what I really like. Baker Mayfield just has that aura about him that his teammates want to follow and just galvanize the troops. Now, I imagine we probably both have the same top five. Now, do we have the same order? At my number 5 spot, I have the Los Angeles Rams. Um, Puka Nakua is the best football or best receiver in football? Eh, I think so. I mean, it's hard to say otherwise. When he's healthy, he produces at a rate that we really haven't seen since Cooper Kupp in the same offense a few years ago. Um, but I mean, just the volume of catches, and he's just always open in these crucial moments, just finding ways to get open. And the chemistry he has with Stafford, who clearly we've seen throughout Stafford's career, when he likes a receiver, he's going to target them no matter what. And he's finding ways to get open, really tough contested catches. He's just been awesome for them. And this defense just solid, right? They definitely got exposed in the running game and some of those deep passes by the Colts last week. Thankfully, holding penalties and Adonai Mitchell's brain helped him out in that instance. But um, you still have that lingering Matt Stafford, 37 years old question that kind of holds over this team of how's the longevity of a full NFL season when you're in this super tough division. Every game matters so much that you're just competing, taking these big hits, these big shots week in, week out. That how is he going to stand? But overall, talent wise, I mean, their offense is dynamic at all levels. Kyron Williams is just a volume machine. Devontae Adams has been proven to be just a awesome, complement on the outside to Puka Nacua. And then defensively, this awesome defensive line. You have some decent pieces in the back end. Is it perfect? No, but it's good enough. And they're going to beat most of their teams, but can they beat the top teams in the NFL? And so far, that has not been the case. They cannot beat the Eagles, even though they were that close last week. Literally that close. Um, but I need to see it, right? Because you could even say, oh, they were just a blocked field goal away from losing to the Eagles or beating the Eagles. Yeah, well, they also entirely collapsed in that second half offensively, settling for way too many field goals. And that's the team. This team's red zone offense does leave a lot to be desired, and maybe you can say that you need to use a lot more Kyron Williams in the red zone. I agree.
No, no.
Just pure
Yeah, if you want to get into
volume.
long and a lot of second and long and third and longs down there, yeah, go ahead.
But ultimately, that's just the ceiling that hangs over this team. They need to be more efficient in the red zone. And what is Matt Stafford giving you weeks 12 through the playoffs?
Yeah, I agree. When you have Stafford, when you have McVay, when you have Puka, there is just a floor that this team has that no one else in the NFL, not no one below them in the NFL can
Say it.
have.
Oh,
And so yeah, that's why I also have them here at the number 5 spot. They are in a good spot to win their division. Especially when you talk about the inexperience in Seattle. The Cardinals are ass and the 49ers are banged up. So they're in a good spot. But like you mentioned, we've seen them hang in with every single team they've played against in the past couple of seasons. But it's just about breaking through that barrier, like you mentioned. The special teams that have some issues there. I mean, just like a couple of these other teams. But Stafford, he's been healthy. Puka Nacua, like you mentioned, the most dynamic receiver in the NFL. They give him jet screens, they give him screen passes, they give him handoffs. He's just electric all over the field. If he's getting a hand on the ball, he's most likely coming down with it. And one other thing, he's not, pouting on the sideline when he doesn't get that volume. And so that's just one more plus for him. But, I really like this Rams team. I was high in them coming into the season, but there's just no way I can put them above the 4 other teams we have on this list.
and speaking of that fourth team, we have the team that's heavily associated with the Rams, and that is the Detroit Lions at my number 4 spot. Um, I just think that the biggest question I want answered is what the hell happened in week 1? Because ever since week 1, this team has been nothing short of a juggernaut, right? Offensively and defensively, dominating the run game. That classic play action connection with Amon-Ra St. Brown, the screen game with Jahmyr Gibbs, and just the power football with Laporta and this offensive line and David Montgomery just really suffocating teams, good teams, mediocre teams, bad teams, just imposing their will. And even last week against the Browns, everyone was saying this Browns defense is awesome. They can hold down teams. Yeah, it was a struggle for maybe a quarter until they figured out the Browns shtick, and then they proceeded to just blow them out of the water, the front run and showboating Amon-Ra St. Brown Lions. Um, and they look awesome. And if really just what the hell happened week 1, The defense looks like it's turned a corner. Aiden Hutchinson looks like he's shaping back into form. Secondary, Terry Arnold gets burnt every week, but I guess you learn from you got to learn from experience, right? Um, but there's still Kirby Joseph is just a fantastic safety. And they have really good players on the back end. So I think Detroit is talent wise still a alpha dog in the NFL. I think is the second best team in the NFC, but ultimately it comes down to Jared Goff in these big games that the brights are the lightest, and he needs to perform. And I mean, going into Baltimore, albeit against a banged up Baltimore defense that is much maligned, and putting on a really good performance like that, I certainly didn't think he was capable of it going into that week. And not a lot of people did, and he proved me wrong. So I'll give him a lot of credit for that. Now, will that translate going into the rest of the season? That will yet to be seen. But ultimately, Detroit needs to win this division. They need to get that first or that obviously first round bye, but just that home field advantage in the playoffs to really steer that ship in the right direction.
Yeah, I also have the Lions at the number 4 spot. I think we might have the same list up through here to the number 1 spot. But no, huge credit to Dan Campbell. Like I talked about last week in our predictions episode, just I did not give him the credit that he deserved in establishing the culture that he has in Detroit. I thought using the coordinators would be a lot bigger of an issue, but like you mentioned, after week 1, it's just been just full steam ahead, and they're just dominating teams. And they have so many different ways to win: running, passing. But ultimately, like you mentioned, it's Jared Goff. He is the huge, elephant in the room. Can he hang with, Jordan Love in the playoffs? Can he hang with Jalen Hurts in the playoffs? If they eventually wanted to make the Super Bowl, can he hang with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes? That's something we have yet to see. But I think the Lions at 4, they're in a very good position so far.
And then at the number 3 spot, we both agree it's the
The
Kansas
City
City
Chiefs.
Chiefs. Yep. I mean, best win of the season last week against the Ravens. Now, we could say like they've looked like crap in every other game. They're losing in the middle and at the Giants. Who loses at the Giants? You have to be an awful team, a gross, disgusting, bad team to lose at the Giants. Um, but it was that, people are calling it the tackle heard around the world, the fumble recovery to save the season. When Mahomes grabbed that ball from Bobby Okereke, loser by the way, in that Sunday night game against the Giants, something switched in that season. That second half against the Giants, an all game in the last game. Obviously, getting Xavier Worthy back is huge for this offense. It opens up so many things for them because he's that huge, reliable down the field threat who can be opposite a guy like Tyquan Thornton, who's definitely more of a specialist. And it opens up a lot more in the middle for guys like Kelsey and Pacheco and the running game to operate. So now you can only imagine that when they get Rashee Rice back, just another solid receiver in that passing game, um, who can just complement everything else that you think this offense will be able to figure it out. Now, even though Pacheco had his best game of the season, I'm not really counting it a bunch against the Ravens. I mean, their defense is clearly pain. So I don't think this running game. I mean, maybe they need to add some juice in the trade market, pick up a few guys, but um, overall, I think they still could use a more dynamic running back in that backfield. But defensively, it's Spagnola. It's guys who've been there, done that. You automatically have faith in them. And the way they're able to just confound these AFC beasts, right? Like Lamar, Josh Allen, all these guys who have been so good for so long. But when they play against the Chiefs, the boogeyman comes out. Until I see this team lose before the Super Bowl, it's hard for me not to pick them. However, if you do your math correctly, you can tell that I have a team above them in that same conference. But that's just because I think the talent is finally caught up at the top. But I have the Chiefs at 3.
Yeah, I have to agree. The Chiefs also at 3. Just vintage Mahomes is back. And like you mentioned with Xavier Worthy, the guy who was probably your focal point, that you knew who was going to be the focal point of your offense, at least the first half of the season. He goes down on the first play of the first game, and then you kind of start just scrambling, right? But they really figure something out, albeit against his bad Ravens defense. But it's just Mahomes. It's Mahomes, it's Andy Reid, it's Chris Jones, it's Steve Spagnuolo. Like one thing, like you mentioned, the only reason I have them a little bit lower than these other two teams is a rushing attack. You can't rely on Patrick Mahomes every single week to be your guy, toting that rock, putting his body at risk. You really liked it for them to go out there and trade for a guy like Zach Charbonnet. Maybe honestly, a more realistic thing would be go out and get Alvin Kamara. I think that's going to be a name that might be hot on the market, especially with the way Kendra Miller looked this past week.
Hello.
But yeah, the Chiefs, they're gonna figure stuff out. They're gonna find ways to win, but they're gonna have to button some things up in the rushing game. But I mean, these two other teams, we had them ranked above the Chiefs, but we know when it comes down to it, playoff time, the Chiefs will ultimately be the world beaters.
All right, and then number two, the team who beat the Chiefs, I have the Philadelphia Eagles here at number two, obviously undefeated, but just finding ways to win. It was hard for me not to put them at number one because they're the champ and they haven't lost yet and they find ways to win. But does it always have to look that fucking ugly every single time? I mean, let's flip it over. The first half against the Eagles, they look awful and then pull a win out of their ass at the very end of the game to obviously a really good second half of coming back and putting together a good performance, but in that first half just nothing. And then last week against the Bucks, blocked punt, awesome first drive, touchdown Dallas Goedert. They're rolling to start, and zero completed passes in the second half. I get it. It's hot in Tampa this time of the year. You saw Jordan Davis on the sideline. Oh, God, coach, I can't. After running that kickback last week, I need some water. But ultimately, they find ways to win. They're definitely the most talented team in the NFC. They have studs at every single position. It's hard to discount them when they haven't lost, but we also sneaky said the same thing about the 2022 Eagles team or three Eagles team after losing in the Super Bowl. They started the year and everyone was like, all right, they're finding ways to win. It looks ugly. AJ Brown's mad, but we'll figure it out. We'll be fine. And then the drop off happened. Now, is that going to happen in this team? I don't think it will, but that's certainly a threat. And just to note, this is Saquon's worst start to a season, rushing attempts, yards per game, yards per carry wise, ever. So just throwing that out there, something to manage and look forward to going into the rest of the season.
Yeah, I do have some concerns with their team, especially offensive line. You lose Mekhi Becton in the offseason. Lane Johnson got injured in the Rams game, did not return in the first quarter. Got injured in this Buccaneers game in the first quarter, did not return. And that's been impacting the rushing ability. Now it's forced a lot more on Jalen Hurts' passing attack, but they have the weapons, and they showed in that Rams game they have the ability to do that. But one thing that really has been standing out, it's been a huge reason why they've won these past two games, has been their special teams. That's just something you can't discount, especially this season. Two back-to-back weeks have had block kicks, return for touchdowns. Um, but just an overall great unit from them. But another issue is for them that I'm looking at is their secondary. They've started to get torched a little bit, in my opinion. Quinyon Mitchell, he can have some of those plays where he's just little boneheaded mistakes, letting guys beat him over the top. But one point I wanted to mention about, you were talking about how, one season, a couple seasons ago, they lost both their coordinators, but they're still beating teams and finding ways to win. But I think one thing that stood out to me this year, they're beating teams who are good teams. They're
Yeah,
beating the Rams, right? They're beating the Buccaneers. And so these are not, you're not beating some
the
crappy,
Chiefs.
you're not beating some crappy team like the Saints, barely getting by. You're playing against some of the top contenders in the NFL and finding ways to win. So that's one bright spot for them.
All right, and then obviously it's like the team that's missing, not going to sugarcoat it. Despite not having any wins, it is the New Orleans Saints at number one. Um, it's the team they lost to, the Buffalo Bills. Bills just, I mean, it's hard. Yes, their schedule's easy. Do they need to dominate every team they play? No. Can it look a little ugly? Sure. But it's not like the Eagles where it's like, oh my God, we just survived that. It's like, all right, we kind of knew the whole time we were going to pull this one out. And the reason I have the most faith in them is they've never controlled their destiny in the AFC. It's always been on the road to Kansas City, even though they lost, at home against Kansas City before, or, on the road. just in these tough spots, not really feeling great. They are just positioned such a good way to be playing their best football at the end of the year. What James Cook and this offensive line have been doing so far to start the season has been amazing. Really taking the pressure off Josh Allen, not to be Superman every single week, and just playing keep away football. Defense, I don't think is still that talented, but I like some of the spark that Joey Bosa gives them off the edge. He had two tackles for loss and a sack last week against the Saints, and just giving this team a little bit more juice, but saving that superhuman Josh Allen performances for the end of the year, and also getting James Cook and this offensive line some momentum going into the end of the year, where ultimately running the ball, playing control football, playing smart football is such a big deal that James Cook, he just looks bigger this year. He looks more imposing. Just it seems like he's falling forward for 6, 7 yards every single play, just getting that extra tough yardage. And I really liked what I've seen from them offensively. Just the continuity with this team. It feels like this is their year. They shouldn't mess this up, but I don't know. It is the Bills.
I mean, let's just be frank. Josh Allen is playing like the best guy in football right now. And there's not much anyone can argue with that. I mean, who else is playing better football than him?
I mean,
I mean, I know Kendra Miller had a good game, but I mean, that was just one game,
Emeka
Uh,
Egbuka has been pretty awesome.
yeah, Zach Charbonnet, he hasn't had a couple
Hey.
touchdowns every single time he started. Um, all right, hey Jordan, hey Jordan. But no, like you mentioned, this is the Bills' year. We talked about it earlier this year about the Ravens and what just John Harbaugh, does he need to go? Is it finally time for him to benefiting off of such an amazing roster, not being able to get over the hump with Lamar Jackson? This is, I think I'm switching my take. I agree with you. I think he needs to go. That's the same sort of thing I'm putting down for Sean McDermott too. This is their year. You're talking about their defense, maybe not having the greatest world beaters, but they have the least amount of passing yards allowed in the NFL so far. Their next three games are against the Patriots, Falcons, and Panthers. This team should be 7-0, Lewis. And like you mentioned, they should be controlling their destiny come January time. And if they can't get it done this year, when the AFC is at its weakest, I mean, you and I went through this list. We have the Chiefs as a only other team in the top five, and then I only had the Chargers, the Colts down, and
Yeah,
the
same.
Jags as the bottom of our top 10 top 10 list. So this is their year. They are the cream of the crop, playing better football than anyone else that we've seen play football so far. Cupcake schedule. They have the ability to be home, have a first round bye. This is their year. They better not find a way to mess it up.
We shall see. No wide rights for this Bills team, hopefully. But let's go ahead, Laraib. That'll do it for our top 10 teams. Obviously, these things are going to change up. One of the most interesting things, you mentioned it, you only had four AFC teams. I only had three AFC teams. So as we go forward in the season, it'd be interesting to look back and see maybe there's an AFC team that we're not noticing right now that's going to catch us up by surprise, maybe catch an easier part of their schedule and really hit their stride. Obviously teams that we had high expectations for, like the Ravens and the Texans, have been very disappointing to start the year. So, what can we see from them going forward? So, it'll be really exciting to see how these things switch up. But looking forward, not to the whole season, but just next week, talking about Thursday night football, Larab. We have the Rams hosting the Niners. Rams favored by 6.5. We're looking at this on Tuesday. Opened at 4.5. The idea is that Purdy is questionable for this game, so we might see Mac again. And like I said in the last analysis for the Jaguars game, it might be a good thing if Mac plays. I'm not saying Mac Jones is better than Brock Purdy, but how healthy is Brock Purdy? I mean, this is a throwing shoulder injury. This is no just slouch injury, right? And he didn't look too great. So the line is making me think, and you mentioned it earlier when we talked, Juwan Johnson, doubtful. A lot of guys just 49ers could not be asking for a worse time to have a Thursday night football game. So if this thing gets ugly early, Shanahan might just say, "Hey, I'm calling the guys off. We need to survive this week and get some long rest." And hopefully after that, with the long break, they're able to get some guys back and get their momentum. But as of now, this seems like, oh man, I just thought of something really, really bad, but I'm not gonna even put it out there. It seems like a game where a lot of guys should chill out. That's all I'll say.
No, I mean you
Anyway, I
mentioned
have the
just
Niners winning. I
just
mean,
oh
Rams,
oh
Rams.
Nah, 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 no take backs. No, I mean this is just such a tough spot for the 49ers. I mean, when Ricky Pearsall left that game, he did not come back. Juwan Jennings might as well not have came back in the game. You're throwing to guys like Kendrick Bourne on the outside, and some other no name I forgot. They had six drop passes in that game. One also by Christian McCaffrey that led to an interception. That should be minus points against Christian McCaffrey, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh, only
This Rams
168
team
points
just
this week.
just just too many injuries for the 49ers. I think the Rams staying at home, I think they're in a good spot here to get a commanding 4-1 lead. I think the Rams win this game 28-13.
Yeah, I agree with you, Laraib. I think this thing gets ugly early, and Shanahan says, "Hey, I can't lose a lot of my important guys. They're already dropping like flies. We're getting 10 days off. So if I see a big lead in this game, I might throw McCaffrey like 9 or 10 dump offs and just say, let's get out of here with our. I expect a big Kyron Williams game in this one if they want to play that ball control, keep the just wind the clock down, get
Or if
us
they
out
want
of
to get
here
to a lot
type
of like
game.
second and long, third and long situations and then force the ball to Puka, yeah.
So I expect a monster 18 carries for probably 60 yards for Kyron Williams and hopefully a touchdown in this game. But um, I also have the Rams in this one. I'm going to go 31-20. But that's going to do it for our week 4 recap. Top 10 teams in the NFL so far. A lot of things expected to switch up. We'll be back with you on Thursday for our week 5 NFL picks and predictions. First round of bye weeks, so not as many games to go over, but
Thank
still
God.
some bangers in this one. But Laura, you got anything else for us before we get out of here?
No, that's the First Goal Podcast signing off.
Peace.